Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. With myself and Michael McCubbin, in Henry Hill's absence, have a massive treat for you today. We've got Uncle Sharma from the Uncle Sharma YouTube channel, Inter Milan fan and Italian football aficionado. How are you doing, my man? Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Aside from the football side, I'm doing very well, and thank you very much for having me on. Big honor for me to come on this channel that I've been watching for years.
Oh, absolute pleasure to have you on. We are very much excited for the big Serie A clash between Inter Milan and Juve this weekend, which we'll be getting into, along with lots of other topics. McCubs, how are you doing? You're COVID-riddled right now, unfortunately. Are you feeling all right?
Absolutely. It was coming, wasn't it, at some point? I've managed to dodge it for 2 years, and yeah, finally got it. So yeah, all things considered, Dougs, not too bad. It hit me like a ton of bricks originally, but yeah, I seem to be recovering, at least for now, a bit quicker than I thought I would. So yeah, not too bad. Looking forward to the show today.
Yeah, likewise. And if to excuse my appearance, I look a bit yellow. Basically, there's a lot of sunlight coming in, so I've shut my curtains, which turn out to be yellow. My lamps are yellow, so I'm looking a little bit yellow, but hopefully not too ill. Right, let's get into the first question. Sharmzz, we wanted to ask you just what's the general mood in Italian football at the moment? Obviously, that shock defeat to North Macedonia last week, but the title race really interesting. Like, are most sort of Italian football fans, are they now shifting their attention to Serie A, or is there a bit of a period of mourning going on?
Yeah, there's definitely some mourning going on. It's funny when Italy crash out just like they did in for the 2018 World Cup in 2017 under Ventura. It was similar vibes. Everything dives into not just Mancini, it's just everything needs to change. We need to change the system. We need to change the immigration system. Everyone turns into like massive Italian BNP, where there's too many foreigners.
Always.
We need to get more young Italians in there. So yeah, it becomes very reactionary. But a lot of it is rooted in truth as well. Things need to change in the Italian youth system. We saw a lot of stats recently about the number of teenagers that actually play in the Serie A compared to the other leagues, and it's like, I think there's only one Italian teenager.
One regular, yeah.
Yeah, and it's compared to the other leagues, there's nothing. And in the the youth system as well, a lot of it still is coached in the same way that it was coached 20, 30 years ago. I think something needs to happen around what England did with their system. Germany and Spain, of course, they're like the shining lights of what they managed to do over the last decade or so, revolutionizing the youth system. So something needs to change, but at the same time, a little bit exaggeration. At the end of the day, Mancini and the boys should have got the job done against Macedonia, especially after 32 shots and no goals.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, do you think, McCubs, it slightly changes the perspective of that Euro 2020 win? I mean, I think they were better than England in the final by a distance, but it felt like the game against Spain, I remember on the way to the final, like they weren't that all-conquering side, really.
Yeah, I think it's, equally Portugal won Euro 2016, didn't they? And they were far worse than Italy. Like, I think Italy was still comfortably probably one of the two best teams at the tournament, probably them and Spain, to be honest. So yeah, I think we're probably being a little bit harsh. Yeah, like Sharma was saying, 32 shots in that game. How Berardi didn't score like at least 2 goals is beyond me.
Don't remind me.
But yeah, I think it's a difficult one, because I think there is definitely something to be said about Italian football needing a bit of a reboot, especially in terms of young Italian players, at least in terms of the integration into the national team and what the national team is going to look like, I think, over the next, say, 10 years, because at the moment there are still an awful lot of veterans in that team who, most people would have thought by now probably would have been moved on, but clearly they are still over reliant on them. Having said that, once Italy do get to tournaments, it's clear that they're still very, very good. Even Euro 2016, I think they were quite unfortunate to go out at the quarterfinal stage, even though that Italy team was far worse than this one. So I do think, I don't know, it's a little bit of both. I think if Italy had got past Macedonia, I probably would have backed them to beat Portugal, and they probably would have had a pretty good World Cup. But it just, I think it just goes to show that actually, the qualification stage, especially for like English fans, we kind of take it for granted now, how kind of easy the qualification stage is in Europe for the bigger teams. But it's not so long ago that, England was struggling, back in the kind of mid 2000s with a supposedly golden generation in those stages. So I think it does go to show that actually, like that kind of level of planning, kind of rebooting, kind of, the national game and whatnot does help in those areas. And those areas are, taken for granted a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it will be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years in Italian football. I'm kind of with you. I don't think too much needs to change from the idea of Mancini getting rid of him, but maybe a little structural change in how they recruit youngsters. They've also got a slightly juxtaposition. I was reading the excellent article by James Horncastle on The Athletic just now, and basically the fact that Italy have 4 teams that qualify for the Champions League. They mainly focus on getting 4 teams into the Champions League every year. It's fiercely competitive. We've seen that this year in Serie A, which I'm sure we'll get onto. Whereas France and Portugal, because they get so fewer teams to qualify, their way of getting so much better is actually to produce and sell talent, which is why Portugal and particularly France and Ligue 1, you've seen such phenomenal players emerge in the last few years, which has probably, in reverse, damaged the Italian national team. But anyway, let's move on to the title race. Let's cheer up Sharmzz with the tale of Inter Milan in the last 7 weeks or so. Before we got into it, Sharmzz, I wanted to ask you, who were you honestly, hand on heart, backing at the start of this year?
Yeah, so before the season began, before like the transfer market finished and all of that stuff, whilst Cristiano Ronaldo was still there, I did back Juventus because Allegri coming back, the team was, I still think, people still feel like they underrate that squad. Still feel like overall, in terms of complete like numbers and the amount of options they have, still feel like it's the best overall squad in the Serie A. Maybe it's not very functional at some points. Definitely the midfield is not that great, but I felt like Allegri just knows how to get the best out of a lot of those players. And now, towards the end of the season, we're seeing it, but they definitely weren't at the beginning. And Ronaldo, I think, leaving just a couple of days before the season starts, just kind of, give him a massive, killer. It was like a shot in the back because they weren't expecting it. And Moise Kean being the replacement, so to say, wasn't really, what I think Juve fans and Juve themselves probably wanted to do. I think it was just a makeshift for the moment. And then obviously Vlahovic came in January. But yeah, it was Juve for me from the beginning. And I put Inter third, I think it was before the season began.
Yeah, I think me and McCubs as well. We had Zach Lowy on Continental Club before a ball was kicked. And I think we also said Juve when Cristiano Ronaldo was still there as well. Not really expecting that really slow start that you talked about before he got that sort of defensive solidity that we've seen in recent weeks as well, and with the star additions in January, as you say. Before we get into sort of analysing team by team in the title race though, what's your general view on Inter Milan now, what we've seen going on in the last 6 weeks or so? You said that you wanted third at the start of the year, but having dropped back into third now, do you really feel a sort of case of missed opportunity?
Yeah, now it does feel like, disappointing and almost like we've bottled it, because we were really at one stage kind of not running away with it, but it looked like we could have run away with it at one point. So looking at it in that way, it definitely feels disappointing. And now even, on my channel, the comments, everyone feels really negative now, because it seemed like, the expectations were quite low, and then the expectations were raised. And that's when, the disappointment comes in, when the expectations are. But, the club in the summer did say, this is going to be transition year. Javier Zanetti literally came out and said, it's going to be a difficult year. I don't want to lie to Inter fans. And, Inzaghi came in, and my expectations, I expected him to do well, but not as well as he started to do until, November, December. Inter were completely flying. He took Conte's blueprint and kind of improved on it, gave a bit of freedom to the players. They were playing more attractive football. I was actually enjoying watching this Inter team a lot more than I did under Conte. And then, January, after the winter break, I don't know, kind of the burnout. We had a very difficult February list of fixtures, pretty much all big matches back to back, and not much rotation from Inzaghi, and I think it's ended up kind of burning out a lot of the players. And now it's looking very hard. I still have a bit of hope for the Scudetto. I haven't completely given up on it, because mathematically we're still there and we still have that game in hand. So I'm still a believer, but difficult season.
For sure, for sure. I mean, if you can sneak a Coppa Italia as well, still in with that second leg against Milan after that 0-0 draw, then maybe that will slightly change the perspective of Inter fans. But yeah, it's worth saying, I should have said at the top of the show, if you've not been following Serie A this year, it's probably the most exciting battle in Europe this season. At least it's a three-way battle, which we don't have in the Eredivisie, which is really exciting as well, and currently the Premier League as well. So Milan are 3 points ahead of Napoli as it stands, who are 3 ahead of Inter Milan, but Inter Milan have that game in hand against Bologna to come. But McCubs, Milan, we've got to briefly touch on Milan before we get, even more deeper into the sort of trials and tribulations. It's been a phenomenal year for Milan, kind of unexpected. I mean, they had been on this trajectory for a while, but they're gunning for, I think I saw 84 points, which is their best ever tally this century.
Yeah, pretty amazing. I mean, we do need to caveat that it's in a 38-game season as well, isn't it? 84 points. I think they won it with 82 in 2004 when it was still 34 games. So, but nevertheless, it's still a really big achievement for them if they can do that. I mean, if they can win the title at all, it's just testament to kind of Maldini and the team there in the way that they've, transformed the transfer policy, obviously, sticking by Stefano Pioli back in 2020 as well, inspired move. Everything's kind of gone right for them. And they also managed to, weather that quite bad injury crisis, especially in the defence, kind of around the time that Inter were really pulling away. They've managed to get themselves, first right back in it, but now, they now kind of look like, I guess, by virtue of being top by 3 points, favourites at this moment in the season. And I think they've managed to do it in kind of big moments as well. I don't think they're necessarily the best team in Italy, in terms of quality or in terms of the amount of games that they've dominated teams in. Big moments they've kind of stepped up and it's kind of worked for them, especially Olivier Giroud. Obviously in the derby, Cagliari, in the last game, Giroud again having a hand in that goal. Ismail Benacer with one of the goals of the season. So nice. I just feel like that's kind of that's been a defining factor for them is kind of big players stepping up in big moments. I know that's a kind of cliche, but that does kind of feel like what this Milan side is slightly built around. Like Zlatan has kind of been that guy a lot in the last kind of 2-3 years since returning to the club. I think the signing of Giroud last summer was one of the signings of the season. And then we've seen players like Tonali really step up their game, haven't we? Salamakers has improved as well this season. Rafa Leao has exploded. I think potentially next season we'll see Leao really step up the production, but he's been superb this season as well. So it's not like I think maybe one of the reasons why they were underrated last year was because they didn't do any massive business. Of course, they brought in Tomori the previous January and then made his move permanent. That was a big deal, but I think it's just the fact that a lot of the players that they did have already there, especially a lot of young players who they brought in the previous 2 years, have just taken their game to a new level this term. And I think it's kind of testament to Pioli's been there 3 years now. This team has remained quite solid in that time. It's remained quite together. The switch between Donnarumma and Maignan was absolutely perfect. Everything has just kind of clicked into place for them this year. And I think, if they go on to win the title, then it'll be massive testament to the project that they've built over the last 3 years.
Yeah, definitely. You felt like maybe last year, if they'd lost Simon Kjær and they'd lost Zlatan for such long parts of the season, then they would have slightly crumbled. But I think that mentality passed down by those experienced players. And the younger players like Tomori really stepping up, Theo Hernandez as well, has really seen them through slightly difficult patches, particularly in the last sort of couple of months as well. I know they're, 7 games unbeaten, but they've only won 8 games unbeaten, but they've won their last 3 games 1-0. Really tight games, getting quite nervy. And, it's a cliche, but that's what champions do. They see it over the line. I mean, Sharmzz, as an Inter Milan fan, sort of, give our fans a feeling of what it would be like if Milan reigned supreme this year. I mean, are all Inter fans, obviously you want yourselves to win, but are you all begging it's Napoli over AC?
Yeah, definitely. We're all on the Spalletti hype train. I mean, I'm a big Spalletti fan anyway, because I like the work that he did at Inter, and I think he's like a really wonderful character to have in the league. But yeah, it'll be a killer to watch them win it, because as you said, it's not really expected from them, and I don't even think a lot of Milan fans would have been expecting this. So it's like it hurts even more when they're just like they're winning it, but they probably weren't even really, they're not really built to win the league, I would say. But as you just said, credit to them, credit to Pioli. Like I don't think Inter would be able to cope with as many injuries as they have been coping with, especially as centre back. I think we would, if we lose Skriniar for 2 or 3 months, I think we would be out of the top 4 or something, as catastrophic as that. So big props to them and their scouting system, finding young gems like Kalulu for like, what was it, 400k they bought him for, and the other signings they make for not much money at all. And I think they released their financial report today, I believe, and they said they've made a profit for the first 6 months of this calendar or this business year. So amazing work.
Yeah, really, really amazing. That's incredibly impressive. I had no idea they were in that sort of category of doing so well with their finances. But yeah, let's briefly touch on Napoli, because they got off into that phenomenal start. They were unbeaten after 12 games. They were still level on points with Milan, but of their next 9 games, they only won 2, and that was a really difficult stretch for them. It was actually just before the Africa Cup of Nations. They actually didn't do too badly when Koulibaly and Osimhen was actually out injured at that period. But they've recovered pretty nicely, to be fair. They're actually the form team in Serie A. I think they've got 1 point more than Milan in the last 10 games and 9 more than Inter. So they are sort of the form team. They're still there or thereabouts. And Sharmzz, let's touch on Victor Osimhen for a second, because for a quality, for a Serie A fan, he must be surely the most deadly striker, along with Vlahovic in the league. Doesn't he strike fear into the hearts of any opponent?
Yeah, I think he's just that, complete all-rounder. Like he just causes havoc with his pace, of course, and physicality. Like he just runs in behind, and players struggle to really get a handle on him. And he gave the Vrij a really hard time when Inter played them, and whoever he plays against is a hard time. I think he still needs to refine his finishing a little bit. I think he's a little bit raw in terms of his finishing, and if you look at his goal collection, it's not the most complete collection. But he's only 22, 23 years old, so yeah, he's got time on his side. And what a signing for Napoli.
Yeah, because it was a big financial commitment as well. It was over £70 million. We all thought, oof, that's quite, he's only done one or 2 years at Lille, I think it was. And before that, he'd struggled with injuries in various different clubs. So it was a massive, massive commitment. So fair play to De Laurentiis for backing his man and it coming off. Our next question, which we could maybe touch upon briefly before getting into the sort of European situation, comes in from Mark Leach. And he wanted to know from you, Sharmzz, do you think the various failures of various nations to qualify for the World Cup would affect morale? So Vidal at Inter, Chile aren't going, Ibrahimovic, Sweden aren't going as well, Osimhen at Napoli, Nigeria aren't going. Do you think they'll have any say in the title race?
I think probably in a positive way that could galvanize the players. Inter have Barella and Bastoni, obviously from the Italian national team. Juventus have a few of the Italian players, so that big disappointment could focus them down to let's just focus on Serie A now and try to achieve the objectives for our club team. Osimhen for Napoli, big disappointment for Nigeria. So yeah, I think it could have a positive effect on morale, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, we'll have to see in the next few games. Right, let's move on to Anad Nanda's question. And it says, when will an Italian club win the Champions League, this decade or next? I mean, McCubs, it's been a really difficult period for Italian clubs in the Champions League.
Yeah, really. I mean, the last 10 years, really, hasn't it? And this year, I think maybe we were expecting more from them in the Champions League as a whole. I think Inter, we can get on to Inter, but they had a pretty tough draw, didn't they, in the last 16, and I think they gave pretty good account of themselves over 2 legs against Liverpool. But Milan finished bottom of a group with Liverpool, Atleti and Porto. Again, a really tough hand to finish bottom of that group. I think they would have been very disappointed with that. Atalanta, who we've been pretty impressed by, haven't we, in seasons past in the Champions League. Obviously had that impressive run to the quarters in 2020. Little bit unfortunate, weren't they? Who was it? Was it PSG beat them in the last couple of minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they really should have beaten PSG in that game. Yeah, absolutely heartbreaking. But yeah, they did terribly as well in the group stage, didn't they? Only won 1 of their 6 games before dropping into the Europa League. Obviously still in the Europa League, but then Juve, generally actually some of their best form in the first half of the season was in the Champions League, but then were absolutely atrocious in that second leg against Villarreal. Their heads just absolutely went in that second half. So yeah, I think that's, I don't know. Yeah, I guess basically since Allegri's last days at Juve, there hasn't really been a team who I guess are feared in the Champions League from Serie A. I think there's a number of teams now, say kind of Klopp's Liverpool, even Pep's Man City now, I think have a bit of an aura around them in the Champions League, one that they didn't used to have. Obviously Bayern, Real Madrid still just about have it, but we haven't really had a team from Serie A that kind of has that, not only has the kind of quality from back to front, because I think actually a team like Inter or a team even this Juve side, I think quality wise do match up to most of the sides who are at least in that kind of level just below kind of Liverpool, City, Bayern. I think quality wise they're absolutely fine, but I don't get the impression that like over two legs that they're going to always have that little bit extra than the other team. I haven't seen enough kind of two-legged ties involving those teams in recent years where they've come out on top, and I think that does often kind of play a part in the Champions League, and at least in what our perception is of their strength in the Champions League as well. And then obviously like Inter, should have really won the Europa League in 2020 as well. So yeah, I think all of those things kind of play into our perception of it. I think I could very much see in the next 2 or 3 years an Italian side making even the Champions League final, because we do it does come in those kind of cycles, but yeah, especially in the last few years, it's hard to really confidently say that Italian clubs can do well in Europe, because they just haven't proven it really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the spending of the Premier League, the quality of coaching in the Premier League, it's a little bit skewed, the sort of European scenario. And 4 or 5 years ago, Barcelona and Real Madrid were at their peak. It was a really, really competitive environment. And actually, to be fair to Milan, I thought they actually gave Liverpool a pretty good run in, I think it was one of their group stage games. But Sharmzz, from an Inter perspective, we've seen Conte create a phenomenal side last year. Steamrollered that second half of the season, won at a canter really, but never really delivered, and as he's really struggled to throughout his career in Europe. Is the Champions League just not been Inter's priority over the last few years, and do you think that will change now Inzaghi's at the helm?
No, it definitely was a priority. I think, especially with the Conte's team, there's no denying that he should have got out of the group stages in both years. I mean, we always had difficult groups, but especially the second season, I think, it was
the second year, was that the year with Shakhtar and Real Madrid?
Yeah, Shakhtar, Real Madrid. And so I think it's definitely just getting out of that group stage, that money, the influx of money is a big difference to Italian teams, so that extra income. So it definitely is a focus. But then after that, as you guys have said, it's like you don't really expect the Italian teams to go that far. Like, I was pretty happy reaching the round of 16 this year, and unfortunately we got Liverpool. I think originally we had Ajax, and I feel like we probably could have got, I think it would have beat them, to be honest, because they got beat by Benfica. But yeah, after that, once the big teams started to come around, Bayern, Man City, I just feel like we're just going in as underdogs. And stories can happen, like Roma a few years ago managed to get to the semi-finals, I believe it was. And you can have stories and little outliers like that happen, but a sustained challenger at the moment is I'm seeing like it's going to be a struggle over the next decade or so.
Yeah, definitely. And it wasn't long that English clubs were really struggling in Europe as well. As McCubs said at the top, it's definitely cyclical. Like Chelsea in 2012 were not anywhere near the best team in Europe. I think they were, 4th or 5th in England that particular season. So yeah, it will come back, I'm sure. I just wanted to quickly ask you about Inter's summer business. We've seen Brozovic sign a new deal. Where are you guys looking to strengthen most this summer?
Definitely the striker position. So Edin Dzeko was brought in, but he was definitely, a makeshift, because after we saw Lukaku, we actually didn't reinvest, not even 50% of the money that we got from Lukaku because of the financial issues we had in the summer. So Edin Dzeko on the free transfer was the best that apparently we could do, and Correa for 30 million. But yeah,
I've seen you on Twitter. You're a big Correa guy.
Well, look, the thing with Correa is people confuse it that they feel like I wanted him into I like Correa. It's like if you sign Jeremy Boga or you sign, Mahrez or Ben Arfa, I like these kind of, technical ballers, but does he really fit in? Probably not. But I like to back players that, have a lot of criticism.
You enjoy watching. I get that.
Yeah. But yeah, striker position, I think, is definitely going to be the focus. We're linked with Scamacca at the moment, who's kind of, probably the only, future number 9 of the Italian, strike force at the moment. There's not many other real number 9s out there, Italian leagues, speaking in Italian league terms. But Sassuolo, as usual, is shooting quite high on the price demands at the moment. Apparently they won 40 million, and this has only really been his first real season as a starter. And yeah, we're linked with Jonathan David and a few other strikers. And, I think if the right offer comes in, I think this could be Lautaro's last season at Inter. I think he signed a new deal at the beginning of the season, but he hasn't really stepped up to the plate. I think after we let Lukaku go, he was supposed to be the poster boy, the main guy, the guy that we were relying on, and he hasn't. Unfortunately, as much as I like Lautaro, he hasn't stepped up to the mark. And I feel like if someone comes in the summer, which apparently Spurs and Arsenal did come in for him last summer, and we rejected the offer. So if they come in again, 60, 70 million, I think this time we'll let him go and get Scamacca in. And probably we're rumoured with Dybala being a free transfer signing because Beppe Marotta, our sporting director, loves him. So yeah, it's an interesting summer ahead. But apart from that, I think it's going to be another difficult summer, to be honest, until we still have the same owners, Suning, the Chinese owners that we have. I think it's still going to be a summer of buying players, but only if we manage to sell some players, to be honest.
Yeah, it'll be interesting as well with Onana potentially coming in. Is it Matthias Ginter as well you're heavily linked with, and Bremer as well in the defence? I wondered whether you knew anything about this. If the Ginters, the Bremer links, does that mean De Vrij's potentially leaving?
Yeah, so De Vrij, he's been on a little bit of a decline this season. He's not been, a couple of years back, he won Defender of the Year for Serie A. And then last year he was solid, but again, I think he's going to be 29. And I think he's got 1 year left on his contract, so it just makes sense. Out of the back three, out of Bastoni and Skriniar, which for me are untouchables, he's the one that, if you can get some money out of him now, you should. So yeah, I think Bremer would be an amazing replacement for De Vrij because he's probably been the best defender in the league this season in the Serie A. So he would be an amazing. He was 24 years old, so he's got some time to improve as well. I think the Ginter one have quietened down a little bit because apparently his demands, because he's a free transfer, so his wage demands are quite high. I think we're going all in on Bremer at the moment.
Okay, exciting times. Yeah, we've been loving watching Bremer from afar this year. Our final question before we go into big match predictions comes in from @TheBridgePod. It says, how are you feeling about the San Siro being torn down and your journey into a new stadium? Before we get your opinion, Sharmzz, I know you've been talking for a couple of minutes now, so I'll let you catch your breath. McCubs, have you ever been to the San Siro? Big regret to not go there. I can't remember whether you've been.
No. I feel like it's a recurring conversation that we have on these programs recently. We all want to go, and we're all going to try and make it happen at some point. We
made the agreement to go Germany Euros 2024. Continental Club
we've got that agreement, but also I think priority for me.
Well.
I want to go San Siro before it, whatever happens to it. Don't really know what's going to happen to it at this point or when it's going to happen, but yeah, no, I've never been, and it's basically number one on my list. So yeah, I need to go.
Yeah.
Hopefully for the derby, but that's a pipe dream.
That'd be massive. I feel like a Man United Champions League tie would just be pretty iconic as well. With your history as well. I mean, Sharmzz, what are you making of the plans? The plans look pretty exciting. The Cathedral, is it called?
Yeah, but it looks like it's not happening.
Oh, is it now not happening? Oh, sorry.
I saw something earlier saying that they're apparently open to maybe other plans or like moving somewhere else or something, which is a bit worrying.
It's Italy. This is one of the issues. There's so much bureaucracy. There's so much red tape. They've been talking about the stadium for years now, and it looked like they had decided on the project. They decided that the Milan council had decided that you can after 2026, because so actually, if you want to visit San Siro, by the way, anyone watching this, you've got time. You've got until 2026 because it has to be there until then, because it's going to be part of the Winter Olympics, I believe, the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics. So it has to be there until at that point minimum. So you got some time, and you definitely should go to the San Siro.
Fantastic.
But yeah, so now they're talking about moving it to an area just outside of Milan. But honestly, guys, it's ridiculous. It's one of the big problems with Italian football, stadium ownership, and I think it's not going to be solved for a while.
Yeah, and it definitely holds your revenue streams back. And we're talking about why aren't they doing well in Europe? Well, very few of the Italian teams own their own stadium. They can't bring in all that revenue. But yeah, we should definitely maybe we should organise a Continental Club tour. Any viewer can come. Sharmzz can be the tour guide. Me and McCubs can do the drinks. And we'll have a great time. But guys, let's move on to our big match predictions. It's time for big match prediction, guys. As you know, we've got Henry, McCubs and myself's league going on. I'll give a little review of what happened the last time we were all up against each other. It was Roma versus Lazio. Henry and McCubs both went for a Roma win, although no one predicted that crazy 3-0 win with that unbelievable Pellegrini free kick. That was unbelievable. So well done to them. They got a point each for that. Marseille versus Nice. They both backed Nice. I backed Marseille. And I got the score spot on. So 3 points to me for that. Real Madrid versus Barca again. McCubs was backing his boys Barca, but did not foresee the 4-0 thrashing. So 1 point to him. So scores on the doors. I've got 34. Henry's got 31. McCubs has got 21. And that will renew hopefully next week. Oh no, I'm on holiday next week. The week after that. Right. Let's talk about our 3 games we're going to preview. There was also Dortmund versus Leipzig at 5:30 on Saturday, but seeing as we've got Sharmzz on, we wanted to preview 2 massive clashes in Serie A and also talk about a monster game in La Liga. So let's first of all kick off with Atalanta versus Napoli. This is 2nd versus 5th in Serie A. There are 12 points between them. I mean, Sharmzz, Atalanta, a really kind of weird campaign for them. It feels like it was almost about to kick off, and then their form recently has been pretty poor.
Yeah. Before the season started, I thought they could be challenging for the Scudetto because I thought they made some smart signings. But I think it's one of those seasons where, I think Gasperini's trying to change some things and some players. Duvan Zapata is a massive miss for them. He's going to be out for pretty much the whole rest of the season, I think, and he was been out for a couple of months now. Ilicic, once again, he's been hit by his mental health issues that he's been suffering from for a while, and once again now I think this he's been out for a few weeks now as well, so he's a massive miss for them. Injuries have hit them really hard this season, and again in this Napoli match they'll be hit by injuries once again.
Yeah, no, I think he'll definitely have a massive part to play. I think it's only really European football they're playing for now. I mean, I was quite surprised they got through against Leverkusen, that really interesting tie. And then they got Leipzig in the quarter-finals of the Europa League, who of course got that bye after Spartak Moscow were withdrawn from the competition. Sharmzz, before I go over to McCubs, what's your score prediction for this one?
So I believe Napoli are actually missing Osimhen and Rahmani, who's one of their main centre backs. So yeah, I think those are going to be big misses for Napoli. And as I said, Atalanta are missing Duvan Zapata and a few other players as well. So I think I'm going to go for a draw in this one. Although Atalanta are really bad at home, they have a really awful record at home. But I'm going to go for a 2-2.
2-2, Henry's favourite scoreline. McCubs, what are you thinking about this one?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because Atalanta have been so bad, but then I kind of feel like this is the kind of game in which they might come back. It's not like they don't have anything to play for. They've got a lot of catching up to do in the race for Europe, and I don't know. I think if I was Gasperini, I think I would still maybe hold out a bit of hope of trying to at least try and keep up a bit of pace and try and at least make up a bit of ground on Juve, because this is a team that has really prided itself on breaking into the Champions League places in the last few years, and I think it has been a disappointing campaign for them. I think the sale of Cristian Romero maybe has hit them a little bit harder than many expected as well, because they improved defensively so much last year. But yeah, I mean, equally, Osimhen, massive loss for Napoli. Obviously, got a brace in the last 2 games, didn't he? And has just been, in general, really integral to them being in good form, hasn't he? Obviously dropped off massively when he was out. So, yeah, tough one. You know what? I'm going to back Napoli though. I'm going to back Napoli. I'm going to say 2-1.
What's his score?
I'm going to say 2-1 to Napoli. 2-1.
Yeah, it does feel it's just such an enormous title race for Napoli, given Insigne's leaving, given Mertens' age, given the fact there's interest in Fabian Ruiz, Koulibaly will be a year older. Like, it kind of feels like this is now or never for that sort of Sarri squad that sort of have just about held on to their best form. So I think they'll be fully motivated.
If they win this without Osimhen and Rahmani, they would be my title favourites.
Really?
Oh.
There we have it.
Big
Love
take.
to hear that. Good shout from Sharmzz. Right, McCubs, what scoreline did you go for?
I went 2-1 Napoli.
I might add an extra goal on that. I'm going to go 3-1 to Napoli. Right, let's move on to game 2. It's the big one. Juve versus Inter Milan. Sharmzz quaking in his boots. It's 4th versus 3rd. There's 1 point now between them, although Inter do have that game in hand, which I keep on mentioning, against Bologna. You guys don't have a great record against Juve, though, Sharmzz.
Oh, no, the last time we beat them at their home was in 2012, so it's been 10 years since we last beat them away. So yeah, they are our bogey team. Even last season when we were, really good, when we went away to their stadium, we lost, and in the Coppa Italia they had our number as well. So yeah, even when we're good and they're not that great, they still manage to usually give us a really hard game.
Nice. And what's the team news from an Inter perspective?
So Brozovic at the moment looks like he might come back. He's been since the Liverpool game. He's had a calf issue, but he's back in training now. So hopefully, fingers crossed, because he's so important to us. If he doesn't make it, then I feel like we're not going to win at all. And everyone else should be back. Tucu Correa now is finally fit because he played 60 something minutes for Argentina the other day I saw against Venezuela. So he's going to be good to bring off the bench. Gosens should now be fully fit as well. He was injured for a few weeks when we actually bought him. He was already injured, but now he should be getting more and more fit. So he should be another great weapon off the bench if Perisic, doesn't work out as much as he has been. And full strength apart from that. So yeah, there's nothing to complain for me in terms of squad. But it's hard to feel confident going into this one. We've not been good, and Juve have been really good the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching the highlights of, who was it? Juve, it was their last game. It's silly that I can't even remember, but Dybala was just unbelievable in that game. And it looks like that Salernitana, I mean, it is Salernitana to be fair, okay, but still, his link up with Vlahovic seems like it's really improving as well. So, yeah, I think Juve will be able to put that Champions League disappointment behind them and give Inter a really good game. I mean, McCubs, what's your scoreline prediction for this one?
Yeah, that's really irked me. No win against them away in 10 years. That's pretty mad.
Juve have only lost one of their last 10 meetings, which I think was that Barella. Do you remember that amazing Barella game?
Yeah, when Vidal scored against them.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. The thing is, I think I'm just being romantic. I just basically want to predict whatever results are going to be good for the title race. So I'm also gonna go for 2-1 to Inter. I just think also I do think that the international break, like out of all the teams in this title race, I think the international break probably came at the best time for Inter. Yeah, I do think for a team that is used to winning over the last few years and has gone through a slump, I think a 2-week break can kind of reset everyone's kind of mentality. Everyone's kind of gone away, and like you said, Gosens is back fit. Brozovic is hopefully back fit. So yeah, I do hold a bit of hope for Inter in this. It's not just blind kind of romanticism. So yeah, 2-1.
2-1 to Inter. I mean, Sharmzz, you surely can't be backing anything other than an Inter win.
No, I can't. I just can't feel. I don't feel inside me. I can't be fake.
Really?
No, I'm going because I know Allegri is going to go for a draw because Juve have less to lose in this game than Inter. Like Inter is like, we kind of have to win almost if we want to keep the title race alive. So he's gonna go for the draw and he's gonna get the draw. So I'm going for a 1-1. And I forgot, the Vrij is probably not going to be back in time for this one. So we're probably going to have a little bit of a makeshift defense, D'Ambrosio, or even worse, Ranocchia coming in. So I'm going to go 1-1.
Oh God, you don't want to see Ranocchia coming in. That's not ideal. I'm just trying to think who would be the heroes for Inter, because it feels like a lot of your best players aren't really in the best form right now, like Dzeko, Lautaro, Barella's had a little bit of a dip as well. It's maybe going to have to be a Calhanoglu, but I think I'm actually going to back Juve for this one. Yeah, I'm going to go 2-0 Juve. I'm sorry, Sharmzz. Got you on Continental Club, and yeah, I'm going 2-0 Juve. Pretty brutal, but guys, get your score predictions for that in the comments down below. And let's move on to our final game quickly. It's Barcelona versus Sevilla. It's third versus second. 3 points between them now. Barca on an absolute tear. Barca also have a game in hand. I mean, McCubs, quickly, I know you would have covered it on last week's show and ERU, etc. But that El Clasico thrashing, what a result!
Yeah, it was mad, wasn't it? It was one of those games where you watch it and you kind of can't believe quite what's going on. It felt a little bit like that Liverpool Man United game earlier in the season. That's how open the Real Madrid defence was, and just the golfing class between the two sides on the night was just pretty crazy after the 20-minute mark. But yeah, Barcelona are obviously on a high right now. I don't think their stock has been higher for years, really. I can't remember the last time so many people were excited about them, because even in kind of 17, 18, 19 when they were winning titles, there was still this kind of thing of like, oh well it's just Messi doing all the work, and everything else in the side is kind of lacking, or everything's kind of grinding slowly to a halt, and we're just waiting for kind of the whole thing to explode. But now it's like, there's this kind of new team, obviously, a young kind of manager in the Barca tradition as well, obviously with Xavi. We don't need to go too far into it, but there's just obviously a lot of excitement around the side right now, and it feels like they can't lose. So I can't really see this being anything other than a comfortable victory. I know Sevilla have been very good this season. They've obviously dropped off a bit in the last couple of months, but their defence has still been pretty good. But I think if there's any team in Spain who are going to unpick that defence right now, it's going to be Barca. That forward line is just in scary form, isn't it? So do you want a prediction now, or do you want to
go for it?
I'll go 2-0. I'll go 2-0. It's not going to be quite as crazy as what we've seen in the past, but yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, Sharmzz, you've seen firsthand what Sevilla can do in a big game, though. I mean, are you still that 2020 Europa League defeat? Does that still irk you?
Yeah, it is. It's still annoying, especially because it was De Jong, the one who scored as well. So it does still hurt, but yeah, no, it's going to be a really good match. But I think Barca in this form that they're in, I think they're gonna win.
Yeah, difficult to avoid it. What's your score prediction, Sharmzz?
I'll go for a 2-1 Barca win.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to say something more interesting, but they have just been absolutely ridiculous right now. They've gone 13 games unbeaten, 5 wins on the bounce. In those 5 games, they've scored 18 goals. And they've gone from 9th to 3rd under Xavi. And I put it on Twitter earlier. I was maybe a little bit fishing because it is a bit early to make this sort of shout, but I said that Xavi was my manager of the year. And
Huge take.
There's going to have to be something mental, some like shock Champions League win for someone to change my mind. Everyone was saying Arteta. I was like, no. They spent so much money in the summer. He's been in there for, a year and a bit, or close to 2 and a bit years maybe. And I just think Xavi's achievement in getting that squad going. I know he was backed a lot in the winter market with the arrival of Ferran Torres, but at that low after Koeman, I think he's done a phenomenal job. So yeah, well done to Xavi. But guys, that's all we've got time for on Continental Club for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Make sure you get your predictions for our big match predictions in the comments down below. And mainly, please get all your thanks in for Sharmzz for appearing on his debut on Continental Club. You were absolutely brilliant, Sharmzz. Give another explanation. Where can everyone find you? What's your Twitter, etc., etc.?
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me. You can find me on YouTube, Uncle Sharma, Inter videos weekly. That's what my channel is called. And you can expect content around Inter, of course, but also I try to make content around Serie A, the Italian national team and things like that, especially as we're going towards the end of the season. There'll be a lot more Serie A content. And on Twitter at @Sharmzz with 2 Zs and the Uncle Sharma on Instagram. Thank you very much, guys.
Love it. Absolute pleasure. I mean, McCubs, it's great to have a proper Serie A aficionado in it. I mean, it's been such a fascinating league this year.
Yeah, exactly. It's good to hear from someone who's, follows it more. We do try and follow it closely, but there's only so much time we put into it. It's great to have an actual expert on to give us his opinions.
Absolutely. And guys, get tuned for the football pyramid tomorrow. It is Joe Tomlinson versus George Wright in a clash of, well, actually neither were really on form, but I don't want to spoil too much. It's an entertaining episode though. Get ready for that. Thank you very much again for watching, guys, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.